hockey. My question was, what the story of parents affecting the players and them shutting down. Kim, can you comment on that? Is that happening on the female side? You're coaching junior girls, and is there anybody interfering with them to that degree?
There might be, but it's rare that the player will communicate it in that way or that I would see it. So, less of the destructive screaming, banging on the glass. I think in 13 years had 2 parents like that who have demonstrably, shown me that they may be sabotaging their daughter in that way. But I do think if it was happening, I don't know that the girls are necessarily sharing that with me. A lot of the time, the girls, it's their own expectations that they're challenging to live up to, and that often the feedback I hear from the players and parents is that the child's expectations are so extraordinarily high for themselves that they're hard to meet, and I think that's quite common in the female game, especially at the level I'm coaching at, or Matt or Tom is coaching at. They're their own worst enemy as opposed to the parents. But again, that's my experience. It may be different. I've not coached at younger levels or lower levels, so I'm not sure if it's different there.
Any other people in the female coaching business can comment on that?
Well, do you think that there's a difference in how the parents react by virtue of the fact that there aren't $1 million contracts for females at the end of the day?
Interesting.
Their deal is a scholarship, though.
Right. Yeah, and that's still obviously has value and is very important. I just wonder if that may account for part of it.
I think you're right, Matt. I think that this generation of parent, while that's changing, and the expectations now are starting to be similar for their young daughter and their young son in terms of life goals, but I would say for the most part, there's still the prevalency of you have different expectations for your daughter and your son. And so we see that with the majority of parents as well. I would say that's my thought.
Well, I mean, don't get me wrong. I've been at thousands of minor hockey games in Toronto. Girls, I don't watch a lot of boys games. And there are a lot of the quote unquote crazy parents who are, voicing their concerns quite openly to everybody. And I always said an easy way to fix the parent problem would be to make them wear the jersey of their kid. Like if they're the home team, make them wear the away so we all know who they're representing. But it is there in the female game, and it is typically the males, like the fathers. But that's typically more of them are at the games. So it's not invisible, but I just personally haven't seen it with the teams I'm coaching quite as much. But it is definitely there. And
I know that at my hockey school, because I run a hockey school that has kids of all levels on the ice at the same time, and I really try to stress fun, but we do have Olympians coaching them. Often parents will bring their kids in and see other kids that aren't as strong on the ice, and be very forceful with my instructors, telling them that this isn't right, yelling at my instructors. So I've certainly had that. I've had parents take their kids out of my camp because they feel like they should only be with elite kids. So there is starting to be, I think you're right, Matt, there isn't the $1 million contract at the end, but there is starting to be way more opportunities for girls that these parents are seeing for, living, as we all say, you're living vicariously through your kids. There certainly is that. And I do see that at camp. Just probably not as much as the men's game.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, we're all of us involved in the women's game are pushing for that, right? To have that option, I guess. And so we'll see what that brings with it in terms of the parents. I can, by way of anecdote, I can honestly say that in 12 years as head coach at Queens, I've had one parent actively question me about ice time. And so I don't know if that's just because, other than playing for a national team, the university level's the top level and parents are happy once they get there. If they've left home at that point and aren't in contact with their child as much. It was a 30-second conversation, mind you, but I've always wondered what it's like maybe down at, in minor hockey with the parents, but certainly in my experience anyway, at the university level, the parents are not really a factor in a negative way.
Matt, I just wanted to, Saul has put his hand up a couple times. When I talked to Saul last week, I mentioned the nature of this presentation, knowing the audience and knowing Morris. And Saul, you've been listening and you had your finger up there wanting to say a few words. And I'm wondering if you can connect this. I think Sammy's point and Tom's point about scholarships, there is a serious goal, financial goal, that's affecting parents, that affects players, that really puts pressure on coaches. So Saul, go ahead. If you got any comments to make, please.